See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. Picture this, an elderly Native American man in Oklahoma who'd spent his entire life scraping by in poverty. Then one day, boom, oil gushes up from his land, and suddenly he's swimming in money. What's the first thing he does? He marches down to the dealership and buys himself the most gorgeous Cadillac touring car you've ever seen. But here's where it gets interesting. Back in those days, these beauties came with 2 spare tires mounted on the back. Not fancy enough for our friend. He wants the longest car in the entire territory, so he orders 4 more tires bolted on. Then comes the outfit: a towering Abraham Lincoln top hat, an elegant suit with tails flowing behind him, and a fat cigar planted firmly in his grin. Every single day he'd cruise into the dusty little town nearby, waving like royalty. He'd twist left, twist right, greeting folks on both sides of the street. Sometimes he'd spin completely around in his seat to holler at people behind him. And here's the kicker: he never crashed. Not once. Never hit another car, never clipped a pedestrian, never so much as scratched a building. Want to know his secret? Right out front of that magnificent Cadillac, pulling the whole thing along, were 2 horses. The mechanics in town would scratch their heads. Nothing was wrong with the engine. It had over 100 horses of raw power just sitting there, waiting to roar to life. But the old man never figured out the secret. He never learned to slip that key into the ignition and turn it. Day after day he relied on 2 horses on the outside, completely oblivious to the 100 horses purring away on the inside. This story is the beating heart of a book that sold nearly 2 million copies and become a cornerstone of personal development. It was written by Zig Ziglar, a warm-hearted storyteller from Yazoo City, Mississippi, who believed with every fiber of his being that most of us are just like that old man, packed with incredible, God-given potential, but wandering through life, never learning how to turn the key. The book is called See You at the Top, and it's not just a collection of ideas. It's a philosophy, a promise, a roadmap. By the time we're done today, you'll have a clear, step-by-step path to your own summit. You'll understand why your success has less to do with your circumstances and more to do with the picture you hold of yourself. And you'll discover the single most powerful principle for getting everything you want in life. So let's start climbing. The journey to the top, as Zig lays it out, starts with a gut-punch realization. Most of us end up where we are because someone handed us terrible directions. Zig tells this story about driving late one night from Birmingham to Meridian. The roads were torn up for construction, so he pulled into a gas station for help. The attendant sketched out a map and swore it was the fastest route. An hour later, Zig found himself 45 miles farther from his destination than when he started. He wasn't lost because he wanted to be. He was lost because someone gave him garbage information. This, Zig says, is the story of so many lives. We wind up broke, miserable, or unfulfilled, not because that's our dream, but because over the years people have been dumping trash into our minds. They've told us what we can't do, built low ceilings over our heads, convinced us to think small. Zig calls this stinkin' thinkin', a disease he describes as hardening of the attitudes. He paints this beautiful picture to show what's possible. In a big southern city, someone built a stunning shopping center on what used to be the city garbage dump. For 100 years, that spot was nothing but rotting trash. But then, a few people with vision stopped seeing garbage and started seeing possibility. They quit dumping and started hauling in clean dirt, packing it down until they had solid ground, and on top of that old garbage, they built something magnificent. The message hits you right in the chest. It doesn't matter what trash has been dumped into your mind in the past. Right now, this moment is the first moment of the rest of your life. You can stop the dumping and start building something beautiful. But where do you begin? Zig hands us a simple, powerful image that becomes the map for the entire book: a staircase. At the top sits a door labeled Tomorrow, covered with all the things we're chasing: health, happiness, genuine friendships, peace of mind, security, opportunity. Right next to the staircase stands an elevator, but there's a big sign slapped across it. Out of order. The elevator to the top, Ziglar tells us, is always broken. You've got to take the stairs, one step at a time, and that very first step, the foundation of your entire climb, is your self-image. This is ground zero. Zig states it like a law of physics. You cannot consistently perform in a manner that's inconsistent with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as a loser, you'll find a way to lose. If you see yourself as a winner, you'll find a way to win. Take Viktor Serebriakov's story. It's absolutely mind-blowing. When Viktor was 15, his teacher looked him dead in the eye and told him he was a dunce who'd never finish school. Viktor believed it. He dropped out and spent the next 17 years bouncing from one dead-end job to another, living the life of a dunce because that's what he thought he was. Then at 32, he finally got a proper evaluation. The results? Viktor was a genius. His IQ was 161. And what happened the moment he changed how he saw himself? He started acting like the genius he'd always been. He wrote books, secured patents, became a successful businessman, and eventually chaired the International Mensa Society, where you need an IQ of 140 just to get your foot in the door. Viktor didn't suddenly get smarter, he just finally gave himself permission to use the intelligence he'd had all along. Most of us, Ziglar argues, are thieves. We're robbing ourselves blind. He tells the story of Emanuel Ninger, an artist so talented he could hand-paint $20 bills that fooled almost everyone. Here's the tragic irony. It took him nearly the same amount of time to paint a counterfeit 20 as it did to paint a portrait that, after his arrest, sold for over $5,000. He was a thief, sure, but the person he stole the most from was himself. He robbed himself of legitimate wealth, respect, and the joy of sharing his true gift with the world. How many of us do the exact same thing? We've got this gift, this unique talent, but our lousy self-image convinces us to play small, settle for less, take shortcuts. We believe the lies, that we're not smart enough, not talented enough, not natural-born enough at whatever we're trying to do. Ziglar just laughs at this. He says he's read newspapers from all over the world, and he's seen stories about women giving birth to boys and girls, but he's never once read about a woman giving birth to a salesman. People become what they choose to become, through training and dedication. So how do we build a healthy self-image? Ziglar walks you through a practical 15-step process, but it all kicks off with one powerful exercise: taking a personal inventory. He asks you a simple question: would you sell your eyesight for $1 million? What about your ability to walk? Of course not. Right there, in just those two things, you're already a multimillionaire. But it goes deeper. He wants you to realize your uniqueness. Out of all the billions of people who've ever walked this earth, there's never been, and never will be, another you. You're a Rembrandt original. The same God who created the geniuses of history created you, and that makes you priceless. Science backs this up. The computer between your ears has more storage capacity than the entire Library of Congress. You're a walking miracle. Once you start accepting your own worth, you can take practical steps. Zig tells you to dress up and look your best, because when you look better, you feel better, and you perform better. Read stories of people who crushed obstacles: Lincoln, Henry Ford, Booker T. Washington. Listen to speakers who build people up instead of tearing them down. And build your confidence with small wins. He uses the example of a high jumper. They don't start with the bar at its highest setting. They start low, clearing it easily, building confidence. Then they raise it bit by bit. Each success fuels the next. This is what he calls accomplishment feedback. But here's one of the most powerful ways to build your self-image: build up someone else. Ziglar tells you to join the Smile and Compliment Club. It's physically impossible to make someone else feel better without feeling better yourself. And even more powerful? Do something for someone who can't possibly do anything for you in return. Visit someone in the hospital. Volunteer. Be a big brother or sister. When you give with no expectation of return, you get a feeling of self-worth that money can't buy. You prove to yourself that you're somebody who makes a difference. With a healthy self-image as our foundation, we're ready for step 2, your relationship with others. This step rests on one of the most famous lines Zig Ziglar ever uttered. You can have everything in life you want, if you will just help enough other people get what they want. This isn't some fluffy sentiment. Ziglar presents it as a fundamental law of success. The way you see other people is the way you'll treat them, and the way you treat them is often the way they'll become. He proves this with a fascinating experiment from Harvard. Dr. Robert Rosenthal took 3 groups of average lab rats from the same litter. He told the first group of students, "Lucky you. You've got genius rats. They've been bred for intelligence and will solve the maze in no time." He told the second group their rats were average, nothing special. And he told the third group, "These rats are idiots. If they find the end of the maze, it'll be pure luck." For 6 weeks, the students worked with their rats. The results? The genius rats performed like geniuses. The average rats performed averagely. And the idiot rats were hopelessly lost. Here's the kicker. There were no genius or idiot rats. They were all identical. The only difference was the attitude of the students. The ones who believed they had smart rats handled them with more care, more encouragement, more attention. They treated them like winners, and the rats responded. They then took this experiment to a grade school. One teacher was told she had a class of genius kids. Another was told hers were average. By year's end, the genius students were performing a full grade level ahead. But again, there were no genius kids. They were all average. The only difference was the teacher's expectation. She saw them as geniuses, treated them like geniuses, and they rose to meet her belief. This is why Ziglar says we must become good finders. We've got to actively hunt for the good in every person and every situation. He tells a story about visiting a business with a man named Walter Haley. As they walked through the office, Walter stopped at the switchboard operator and said, "I want to tell you what a beautiful job you're doing. You make people feel delighted that they called." The woman absolutely beamed. He then walked to a department manager and said, "Since you took over, we haven't had a single complaint. That's a tribute to you." He praised his secretary, telling her his wife thought she hung the moon. In less than 3 minutes, Walter Haley gave each person something to live up to. He left them better than he found them, and in doing so, he guaranteed they'd work more effectively for his company. Ziglar makes this deeply personal with a story about his own family. He had 3 daughters, and like many people, he and his wife had heard that the middle child is always the problem child, different, difficult, always demanding attention. So they expected their middle daughter, Cindy, to be different. And because they expected it, they treated her differently. Zig admits he'd often complain, "Why does Cindy whine so much? Why can't she be happy like her sisters?" And Cindy, wanting to cooperate with her parents' expectations, became exactly that, a whiny, unhappy child. Then they learned about good finding. They made a deliberate change. Whenever visitors came over, they'd introduce her specially. "This is Cindy," they'd say. "She's the little girl everybody loves because she's so happy. She laughs and smiles all the time, don't you, baby?" And little Cindy would flash her 2 front teeth missing grin and say yes. They planted a new seed, gave her a new reputation to live up to. A month later, when a visitor arrived, Zig started his usual introduction. "This is our little girl that everybody loves." And Cindy tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, "I've changed my name." Surprised, Zig asked, "What's your name now, baby?" With the biggest smile you've ever seen, she announced, "I'm the happy tadpole. When you see people for their potential, you empower them to reach it. When you only see their flaws, you give them something to live down to. This applies to our children, our employees, and most critically, our spouse. A marriage," Ziglar insists, "is the foundation for a successful life. And It can only thrive when you treat your partner not as you see them in their worst moments, but as the person you know they can become. With a solid self-image and a commitment to helping others, you're ready for step 3, goals. How can you hit a target you don't even have? That's the central question here. Ziglar tells the story of Howard Hill, arguably the greatest archer who ever lived. He could hit a bullseye and then split that first arrow with his second shot. But Ziglar says he could teach anyone to shoot more accurately than Howard Hill on his best day, with one tiny condition. First, he'd blindfold Howard and spin him around a few times. The point lands perfectly. You can't hit a target you can't see. And in life, most people are wandering around without any targets at all. This is why, Ziglar says, if you follow 100 young people until they're 65, only 5 will be financially secure. It's not because they plan to fail. It's because they failed to plan. He compares a person without goals to processionary caterpillars. These creatures get their name because they blindly follow the one in front of them. A French naturalist arranged a group of them in a circle around the rim of a flower pot. In the center, he placed their favorite food, pine needles. The caterpillars began marching, one after another, around the rim. They marched for 7 days and 7 nights, around and around in a circle, until they all dropped dead of starvation and exhaustion, with an abundance of food less than 6 inches away. They confused activity with accomplishment. So many people do the same. They're busy as hell, but they're not productive, because they've got no clear direction. They're just marching in circles. Goals give you that direction. Why don't more people set goals? Ziglar identifies 4 reasons. 1. They've never been sold on the importance of goals. 2. They don't know how. 3. They fear failure. If you don't set a goal, you can't fail to reach it. 4. They have a poor self-image and don't believe they deserve to achieve their goals anyway. This book tackles all 4. First, understand the characteristics of effective goals. Your goals must be big. It takes a big goal to create the excitement and energy needed for maximum effort. Nobody gets fired up about just getting by. The excitement comes from reaching for something just beyond your grasp. Second, goals must be long-range. If you only have short-term goals, you'll get derailed by temporary setbacks. A long-range goal acts like a lighthouse, keeping you on course, even through storms. You don't have to see the entire path. As Ziglar says, you go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll always be able to see farther. Third, goals must be broken down into daily objectives. A long-range goal without a daily plan is just a daydream. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and daily goals are those steps. They're the bricks you lay every day to build your cathedral. Fourth, goals must be specific. More money isn't a goal. A nice house isn't a goal. A goal is a 4-bedroom brick home with a 2-car garage in a specific neighborhood, costing a specific amount. You've got to be a meaningful specific, not a wandering generality. A magnifying glass can only start a fire if you hold it still and focus the sun's rays on one specific point. Your energy works the same way. It must be focused. To illustrate this, Zig tells the story of his younger brother, Judge Ziglar, who sold cookware. For years, his sales hovered around $34,000 annually. One day, Zig challenged him. How'd you like to become immortal in the cookware business? Just break the all-time company record. At first, Judge was skeptical. The record seemed impossibly high. But Zig helped him break it down. Judge started keeping meticulous records. How many calls to get an appointment? How many appointments to make a sale? He knew his numbers cold. The company record was $104,000 in a year. Seemed huge. But broken down, it was about $350 in sales per working day. That seemed doable. Judge made the decision. It wasn't an if decision. He didn't say, I'll break the record if I don't get sick or if my car doesn't break down. In fact, during that year, he wrecked his car, there was illness in the family, and he even buried 2 loved ones. But his decision was ironclad. I'm going to break that record, period. And he did. That year, selling the same product in the same area, he sold over $104,000 worth of cookware, more than tripling his best previous year. He did it by setting a big, specific, long-range goal, then breaking it down into daily, actionable steps. This leads to step 4, attitude. This, Ziglar says, is the real game changer. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. He tells a story of speaking in Flint, Michigan. During a massive General Motors strike, the whole city was shut down. The man sitting next to him at lunch complained for 10 solid minutes about how terrible business was. "Nobody's buying anything," he moaned. "I haven't sold a house in so long, I don't think I'd know how to fill out the contract." Zig then turned to the lady on his other side and asked how she was doing. "Fantastic," she beamed. "You know, General Motors is on strike, so for the first time in months, these people have plenty of time to shop for the home of their dreams. They know the strike will end, and they know they can buy a home cheaper now than they ever will again. Business is booming." One person was going broke because of the strike, another was getting rich because of it. The external circumstances were identical. The only difference was their attitude. Your business, Ziglar says, is never good or bad out there. It's either good or bad between your ears. This is the power of a positive life attitude. But how do you get it? And more importantly, how do you keep it when life throws curveballs? Zig offers a powerful 4-step formula to ensure your attitude. Step 1 is to reverse how you get out of bed. Most people start the day in neutral or reverse. The alarm screams, they groan, and they think, "Oh no, another day." He challenges you to flip it. The moment your opportunity clock goes off, sit straight up, clap your hands, and say out loud, "Oh boy, it's a great day to get out and take advantage of the opportunities the world has to offer." Yes, you'll feel ridiculous, but you'll also be laughing at yourself, and you'll have seized control of the first moment of your day. You're acting your way into a new way of feeling. Step 2 is to establish positive symbols. We live in a negative world. We call them stoplights, but in reality, they're go lights. They exist to help us go farther, faster, and more safely. Ziglar tells you to start calling them go lights. When you do, you'll smile, because it's a conscious choice to see the positive purpose behind something. This small shift retrains your brain to hunt for the good. Step 3 is to set your gyroscope. Unlike animals, humans can set their own direction. A sailboat can go in any direction, regardless of which way the wind's blowing, depending on how you set the sail. Your attitude is your sail. Ziglar tells you to set it by writing down your goals and affirmations. Instead of mindless doodling during a phone call, write "I can," followed by your specific goal. Then write "I will." This burns your objective into your subconscious and sets your inner compass towards success. Step 4, the most crucial step, is to feed your mind. You feed your body every day, but how often do you consciously feed your mind? Ziglar was huge on what he called Automobile University. He pointed out that the average American spends hundreds of hours a year in their car. If you use that time to listen to educational and motivational recordings, you can transform dead time into live time. You can get the equivalent of a college education while driving to work. You are what you are because of what's gone into your mind. You can change what you are by changing what goes into your mind. Feed your mind good, clean, powerful, positive thoughts every single day. This brings us to step 5, work. Ziglar pulls no punches here. He opens with the story of a wise old king who asked his wise men to compile the wisdom of the ages. They returned with 12 massive volumes. The king told them it was too long. They condensed it to 1 volume, then a chapter, then a page, then a paragraph, and finally, to a single sentence. The king was thrilled. "This," he said, "is truly the wisdom of the ages." The sentence was simple: there ain't no free lunch. This is bedrock Ziglar philosophy. The most practical, workable philosophy in the world won't work if you won't. But he reframes the idea of paying the price. He tells a story about his own battle with weight. At 202 pounds with a 41-inch waist, he felt like a hypocrite writing a book about success. So he committed to losing 37 pounds. He started a brutal running and diet program. At first, he complained every step of the way, telling everyone about the enormous sacrifice he was making. He was paying the price. Then one day, jogging on a gorgeous spring afternoon, it hit him. At age 50, he was in better physical shape than he was at 25. He felt incredible. And he realized the truth. You don't pay the price for success. You enjoy the benefits of success. You pay the price for failure. You don't pay the price for a good marriage. You enjoy the benefits of one. The effort isn't a price. It's an investment that pays incredible dividends. The central metaphor for work is the old-fashioned water pump. If you've ever used one, you know you can't get any water out until you first put a little water in to prime the pump. Life's the same. You've got to put something in before you can get anything out. A farmer has to plant the seed and do the work long before the harvest. A student has to put in hours of study long before graduation. You can't stand in front of the stove of life and say, "Give me some heat, and then I'll put in the wood." You've got to put the wood in first. And once you start pumping, you've got to keep at it. Bernard Haygood, a friend of Zig's, was pumping away on a scorching day and getting tired. He was about to quit, saying, "I don't believe there's any water in this well." But his friend Jimmy grabbed the handle and said, "Don't stop now. If you do, the water will go all the way back down and you'll have to start all over again." This is the story of so many people. They quit just before the water starts flowing. They stop one stroke away from success. You never know if it's 2 more pumps or 200 more, but if you pump long enough, hard enough, and enthusiastically enough, the reward will come. And once the water starts flowing, it only takes a little steady pressure to get more water than you can use. This brings us to the 6th and final step, the one that ties everything together: desire. Desire, Ziglar says, is the equalizer. It's what lets a person with average ability compete with and even surpass someone with immense talent. It's that one extra degree of difference that turns hot water at 211 degrees into steam at 212 degrees. That 1 degree is the difference between a nice cup of coffee and the power to move a locomotive. When he thinks of desire, he thinks of Pete Gray. In 1945, Pete achieved his lifelong dream of playing Major League Baseball. He only played 1 season, wasn't a star, never hit a home run. But Ziglar insists he belongs in the Hall of Fame because Pete Gray made it to the major leagues with only 1 arm. He didn't focus on what he lacked. He focused with incredible desire on what he had. Success, Ziglar says, isn't determined by the hand you're dealt, but by how you play that hand. Desire creates what he calls intelligent ignorance. This is the gift of not knowing what you can't do, so you go ahead and do it anyway. He points out that according to the laws of aerodynamics, the bumblebee cannot fly. Its body's too heavy, and its wings are too light. But the bumblebee doesn't read scientific journals. It just flies. Henry Ford had intelligent ignorance. When he told his highly educated engineers to build him a V8 engine, they patiently explained why it was an engineering impossibility. Ford wasn't listening. "Gentlemen," he said, "I must have a V8 engine. Now go do it." They came back again, reporting it was impossible. With fire in his eyes, Ford commanded, "You don't understand. You are going to build it for me." And guess what? They built it. They did it because one man with overwhelming desire was ignorant of the word impossible. This is the attitude that takes life's lemons and makes lemonade. A broken arm while cranking his car was the lemon that led Charles Kettering to invent the self-starter. Being stranded in freezing temperatures without a way to shave was the lemon that led Jacob Schick to invent the electric razor. To bring all 6 steps together, Ziglar tells the story that became the heart and soul of his message. It's about his friend, Bernie Lofchick, and his son, David. When David was born, his parents soon realized something was terribly wrong. A specialist delivered devastating news. This little boy is spastic. He has cerebral palsy. He'll never be able to walk, talk, or count to 10. He advised them to institutionalize David. But Bernie Lofchick, with fire blazing in his eyes, refused to accept that verdict. He said, "I'm not a buyer, I'm a seller, and I couldn't see my son as a vegetable. I saw him as a strong, healthy boy who was going to live a full life." That was his self-image for his son. With an unshakable belief and attitude, they built a gym in their basement and began the battle. For years it was daily warfare with painful exercises. There were small victories, like the day 6-year-old David, his little body drenched in sweat, completed his very first push-up. It was a victory for the whole family. Doctors had said he had no motor connections to the right side of his body and would never have a sense of balance. But fueled by his family's love and his own incredible will and desire, David went on to learn to ride a bicycle, to ice skate and play hockey, to swim, and to play golf. The boy who was never supposed to count to 10 excelled in 9th grade mathematics while he was in the 7th grade. The story of David Lofchick is the living, breathing embodiment of the stairway to the top. It's proof that, with a healthy self-image, the right relationships, clear goals, a positive attitude, hard work, and burning desire, you can overcome almost any obstacle. You can defeat any Goliath. And where does the opportunity to climb this staircase come from? For Ziglar, the answer is crystal clear. It's the free enterprise system. It's the freedom to dream, to work, to build, and to succeed. This is the stage where the drama of success plays out. It's America the Beautiful. He ends the book with a passionate call to appreciate and protect this freedom, because it's the foundation that makes the entire journey possible. When you step back and look at the whole picture of See You at the Top, what becomes clear is its beautiful, timeless simplicity. In a world constantly chasing the next complex life hack or productivity secret, Zig Ziglar brings us back to the fundamentals. His message isn't complicated. It's grounded in character, integrity, faith, and an unwavering belief in human potential. It feels less like a modern self-help book and more like wisdom passed down from a beloved grandfather. The power of Zig's message is that it's not just about achieving more, it's about becoming more. The goal isn't just to reach the top, it's to become the kind of person who deserves to be there. He reminds us that what you get by reaching your goals isn't nearly as important as what you become by reaching them. This is a philosophy that builds not just successful careers, but successful lives. The stories he tells are the heartbeat of the book. They're not just case studies, they're parables. The old man with the Cadillac, the processionary caterpillars, the old-fashioned water pump. These images stick with you long after you've finished reading. They become mental shortcuts for profound truths. That's the magic of a master storyteller. He doesn't just teach you a lesson, he gives you a story that teaches the lesson for him, over and over again. In today's often cynical world, Zig's unabashed optimism and patriotism can feel like a breath of fresh air. He believed in the goodness of people and the greatness of opportunity. He wasn't blind to problems, but he was always focused on solutions. He believed every lemon could be turned into lemonade, that every setback was a setup for a comeback. This is a message of hope, and it's as relevant today as it was when the book was first written. So how can you start applying this philosophy right now? Here are 3 simple actions you can take today. First, give yourself a checkup from the neck up. For the next 24 hours, just become aware of your own thoughts. Listen to yourself talk. Notice when you say, "I can't," or when you focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. You don't have to change it just yet. Just notice it. Awareness is the first step to change. Second, become a good finder. Make it your mission today to give one person a sincere, specific, honest compliment. It could be a family member, a coworker, or the person who serves you coffee. Look for the good in them and point it out. See how it makes them feel, and more importantly, see how it makes you feel. Third, prime the pump. Identify one small positive action you've been putting off. Maybe it's a 15-minute walk, or reading 10 pages of a book, or making that one phone call. Don't think about the whole well. Just focus on that first pump. Do it today. Start the flow of water. That was a summary of See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. We've walked up the 6 steps of the staircase today, but I'll be honest with you. Listening to a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It can show you the destination, but it can never replace the experience of the journey itself. The real magic of this book happens when you read it, when Zig's warm, folksy voice seems to speak directly to you, and one of his simple stories lands in your heart at just the right moment. This summary is your map. If anything we've discussed today has sparked something inside you, I encourage you to grab a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just about learning principles. It's about catching a spirit of hope, optimism, and unshakable belief that you were, indeed, born to win. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep climbing that staircase together. I'll see you at the top.